It's good to be here talking with you guys again, this time for the virtual studio blog. In this video, I'm going to touch on where my course project currently is and some inspirations that have gone into this work. But first, I want to show you a look at my studio area where I'm creating all of this work. Okay, first, taking a look at my studio. Basically, my apartment and my art studio are the same thing, so I'm living around my art constantly, so I'm constantly interacting with it. There on the bottom left of that picture, you'll see my cat, who's always interactive with my art. And yeah, I've just set this space up so I can just play with whatever arts I want when I want. The picture of the kitchen table is extra studio space, and there on the right is some pottery stuff, a pottery wheel that I have to play with. So I'm a bit of an artistic jack of all trades. I just like to play with tons of different mediums. In preparation for this virtual studio visit, I was actually recording a bunch of my process while I was creating these different pieces, and I think it's really interesting to look back and see how I'm creating this way. So here I'm working on the calla lilies piece and the cactus piece, and I always usually work very wet on wet for my backgrounds. I like to complete backgrounds in one go if I can, and just because I feel like that makes it a more complete image, because then the colors are interacting, there's harmony within the piece. I think it's an interesting way of creating for me. Then on top of these, I've been adding washes to just slightly adjust the colors to what I want. And especially on calla lilies, or no, the cactus one, which is the orange one, these weird textures are appearing, which I'm guessing is probably the acrylic version of craquelure. I'm guessing because I wasn't letting enough time in between the washes to let it dry. It's definitely an interesting texture, but I don't know if it's what I'm looking for here. Now, the vase piece is what I think I've worked on the most so far, and my dad actually helped me a lot with this one. He's a carpenter by trade, so he's very hands-on, and he passed a lot of that knowledge down onto me. And he helped me figure out a lot of the logistical parts of creating the vase, such as the wire underform and connecting it to the canvas, as you see here in this video. And it was an interesting experiment. I definitely choose a thicker wire next time, but I'm liking the way it's going. And here in a second you'll see this is how it gets connected to the canvas with these 4 pegs that are then twisted on the bottom of the canvas. And that wire structure cannot move now that it's connected. Once I have brought it home, I covered it in thin paper that is being covered in gesso here. I kind of wanted it to be like a kind of paper mache idea, but using gesso as the primer instead, since I am planning to cover this in paint anyway. Okay, now here I'm working on Innocence, which is the piece based off of Exercise 1, and again you'll see me working really wet on wet here. This is more like how I usually work wet on wet in creating backgrounds. The other 2 pieces I'm still adding to them afterwards, which I usually don't do, but I'm liking the results for it. Yeah, so this is the framing for the background, and then I'll be putting the flowers on top of it. I was going to do them to scale for the flowers, but I think I'm going to scale them down to the size of the vase, so it matches the composition. Okay, so this image is an example of where Wildflower Fields is at. meaning it's just a background right now. This is a piece that I actually created for another course that I never finished as I wasn't really sure where to take it. But just trying to think on like bursting blooms of color within fields or on the sides of roads when you're driving. This just gave me the impressions of that. So I decided to use it for this piece instead and just have that speckled color become part of the background. Next, I just wanted to share some of the ways that I get my ideas, and I get a lot of ideas while driving, which is where I got the idea for koi ponds. And originally, I was going to do acrylic pouring on the background, but I decided not to in the end because I already know how to paint water. This river clip that I'm sharing here is a childhood river that I grew up exploring. It's about 10 minutes from my home. I got eaten alive by mosquitoes to take that clip. And these next couple images are just work that I've already done on water. It's very impressionistic. You can see the brush strokes. Um, I did a couple test squares for koi ponds, and I just wasn't liking the look I was getting, so I decided, hey, I already know how to paint water. Let's just do it this way instead. And finally, I just wanted to share some imagery that I took from around my house of the flowers that we had growing. They're not really wildflowers, and my apologies that some of them are a little died off. Since this is in October, unfortunately, a lot of the blooming flowers have died off, so we're just working on clearing the brush out. But every year, this is what I see. Like these gorgeous blooming flowers, butterflies flying around, um, little wildflower daisies, and it was really inescapable, I guess, that I would end up creating flowers in my work because I've been influenced for years by these flowers. These flowers were actually my grandmother's flower bed. She and my grandfather lived with us, and she actually just passed away about a year ago. So we're trying to figure out what to do with these gardens, and I find it interesting that a lot of my work is now translating into flowers. Um, I guess it could be focused thinking on how fragile this beauty is, but that it'll always grow back. I guess it's a sense of mourning in a way. And this is the back garden, which is currently cleared out. And then the following clip is the fields behind my house, which intersperse this whole area. This whole area is interspersed with farmlands and housing. And this kind of beauty was just inescapable, and I think it's fitting that a lot of my work has ended up focusing on flowers and this very natural setting. Okay, yeah, there was some slightly rambling information about how my course project is going and some inspirations that I've discovered while looking at how I'm going into creating this project. And I think I've made some really interesting revelations, at least for me personally. I've also been really thinking about how perceptually this kind of work going really 3D can change how the viewer's perspective of the work is, translated, how that mentally changes how they're looking at artwork. And I think it could just be really interesting to continue investigating how more 3D work changes perception within viewing artworks. But that's more of a future interest, I guess. um, I'm feeling pretty good about where the project's at. I'm currently getting ready to start creating the flower forms. Doing a lot more math than I had expected to be doing in a painting course. But I'm trying to apply like the golden spiral or the ratios and the Fibonacci spiral thing into this work and try and see if that actually changes like how many petals Daisy would have, or the amount of seeds that should be seen within the middle of a flower. So I'm really kind of in this more investigative stage than I am in a creative stage. But I'm about to start creating, or else I am actually going to be behind. So yeah, that's where my project's at, and I'm hoping it's going to evolve from here, and I can't wait to see what you guys are creating too. Talk to you guys again soon, hopefully.